Okay, this is where we left off with our code last time. So now let's actually start coding something. The first thing that we have to do in our code is we have to tell it that we're going to be using some devices like motors, sensors, and a controller. So let's do our motors first. So on my drivetrain, I'm going to have a motor for the left wheel and a motor for the right wheel. So I'm going to tell it that, hey Vex, we have a motor. I'm going to call it left motor from now on, and it's going to be a motor in whatever port you plugged it into. So let's just say I plugged mine into port 1. And then we can just use a similar idea for the rest of our motors. So we have one for the right side of the robot, maybe an arm motor and a claw motor. And then we can just go ahead and change these names. So I have a right motor, maybe I plugged it into port 2. Then I might have one for the arm, an arm motor plugged into port 3, and a claw motor plugged into port 4. So just like that, we have all of our motors ready to go. Now let's say we also have some sensors. So let's say, for example, that I have an inertial sensor. So what I'll say is, hey Vex, I have an inertial sensor. I'm going to call it inertial underscore sensor from now on. And this is going to be an inertial sensor in port maybe 7. Okay, now if you look at the brain, you might see that there are these skinny ports on the side labeled A through H. These are called 3-wire ports because the cables for these types of sensors and devices have 3 wires on them. So one 3-wire sensor is the bump switch. So let's say we're using one. What we're going to do is we're going to say bump, we're going to say we have a bumper, and then we're going to name it. So I'm just going to call mine bump underscore switch. And instead of doing port A or port B, we have to do brain dot 3-wire port and then the letter of the port that you plugged it into. So let's say I plugged mine into port G. So now we've set up some sensors. If you're having a driver control, which you probably are if you're competing, then you also have to tell it that it has to respond to a controller. So it's pretty similar to how you did the motors up here. So we're going to say Vex, we have a controller, and we're going to go ahead and name it. I'm just going to call mine main control, and this is going to be a controller. And we give it parentheses, and we just don't put anything inside. And that's that. We've set up pretty much all the devices that we'll use.